419 with Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, and Kevin Mullen.
Welcome in to a Friday edition of the 419, powered by WGTE, presented by Witro Wealth Management. I'm Kevin Mullen, alongside
Gretchen DeBacker.
Matt Killam.
So it's our mystery guest day, and it's your surprise guest today, Matt.
Yep, my big day, my big debut.
This is your first. So obviously,
I'm my own secret guest.
This is the first time that Gretchen has allowed you to bring in a secret guest.
That's right.
Yep.
Although this person is on, I think, all of our lists and has been on. So So I'm kind of excited about it.
That's the first clue.
Yeah. But I do want to talk about, I'm going to fall victim to something that I know you've mentioned before, our proximity to where we record, which is secret to keep our fans away. Wixie's Bakery is very close. I will be stopping by there, but I did want to ask the two of you, best donut in town. Your thoughts on this?
It is very difficult being less than a mile from Wixie every day that we're here.
Yeah.
That's traumatizing. But I'd probably say Wixie, best donut.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I don't know that I've ever had a bad donut.
100%.
Yeah. So, like, Haas Bakery
Yes,
is
they're good
fantastic.
Where's that?
Oregon.
Okay.
And then there's Strawn's,
Yes.
which is fantastic. And then Holy Toledo Donut, I think is just like
those are
that's
good
like a
too.
destination donut.
That's
right?
like
It's not an
a special
everyday.
occasion.
Yeah, for me, a dumpster is a destination for a donut. They are. Do you have a favorite?
Favorite donut?
Yeah.
Apple fritter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Queen's-
Not a
That's
donut,
not
but
a
that's
donut.
okay.
When-
Yeah.
how is that not a donut?
Because you just said fritter.
What's your favorite donut? Oh, I like a
fritter.
good ham and cheese sandwich. Cool.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm just now
What's your
learning
favorite
this. You're
sandwich? A
saying
hot
that a
dog?
fritter
Yeah,
is
that's
not a
what I'm
donut.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
All right, you know what? We're going to take this to a poll.
Oh,
we're gonna put this
Yeah.
on. We're
Put
gonna
that
put it
up
on
on the
social
YouTube
media.
poll. Yeah.
I want to know yes or no. So it's thumb up if you agree with Matt that a fritter is not a donut. Love if you agree with me.
Yeah. I
that
think that's already
is-
sort of skewing it a bit.
Yep,
fine.
that's
Your favorite
exactly
donut?
how we do it.
I like a
Sedan?
custard-filled Long John.
That's not a donut. It's a Long John.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also a terrible choice. So there's two things I've got problems.
What's yours,
Or
Matt?
I like
Traditional
the blueberry frosted one.
Those are good.
So good.
Yeah.
And
I
Or
always-
they have cherry ones too. That's like this incredibly awesome fake cherry taste with the glaze.
tastes like red.
Yes, it tastes like the color red.
It's like blueberry tastes like purple.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, our kids, like the default, proximity to our house, Dunkin' Donuts is right around the corner, and so like they want for their birthday Dunkin' Donuts in the morning.
Man, that Krispy Kreme Dunkin' Donuts, yeah, that's a fight for the second place for me.
I like going into Wixie and getting 4 donuts, pretending like I'm picking them for other people.
I like going in. I like going to
I'm
Krispy
like,
Kreme.
I don't know what they want.
Yeah.
Let me think.
Yeah,
Give me
they have
the glaze.
cancer, so I want to make sure I get it right. I like going to
And
Krispy
the lady
Kreme.
looks at me like,
Yeah.
just pick them.
Welcome back, Gretchen.
Can I get 2 coffees as well?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think the other one likes it with cream.
Yeah, I'm just visiting. Where's the Planet Fitness closest to here?
They're closed.
Yeah, yeah, sir.
Oh.
Please put your pants back on.
I default to, I feel like my taste buds add points to local owned places.
All right.
And so, while I do love Dunkin' Donuts, and there's an aspect of that is local owned, and I know we've got a handful of the local owners that do a lot of work in the community. You can't argue with what Wixie's has done as well. So fantastic. All right, when we come back, Matt, you're on the hot seat.
Yeah, that's right.
You have, we've been doing this for 2 years as a podcast. Obviously, we're in month 1 still with WGTE, but you are on the hot seat with
That's
your
right.
special guest.
That's right. Mystery guest.
Mystery guest.
All right.
I will not let you down.
We will find out who it is just the same time you will on the other side of this break. It's the 419. Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at witroadvisors.com.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.
Introducing The Local Thread, a community news series uniting voices and storytellers from across the region. In partnership with La Prensa, the Toledo Free Press, the Sojourner's Truth, Toledo Public Schools, and veteran journalist Jerry Anderson, The Local Thread brings you stories and conversations that connect our community. Hear it weeknights at 7 on FM 91 with early access on podcast platforms each morning. The Local Thread, only on WGTE.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE and presented by Witro Wealth Management. It's our Friday surprise guest edition, and inevitably, you know, when you launch a new show, there's growing pains, right? There's things that we learn, and there's advantages and disadvantages. And one of the challenges we found, Gretchen gets very anxious about getting guests in and out of the chair.
Yeah.
And so we just said, you know what? Forget it. Let's just bring the guest into the chair.
Yep.
And so, Matt, do you want to give us any hints?
A couple
as to
hints.
Who you're
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a man. Man. Right?
sitting
Yep.
right next to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Based on his degenerative hip condition, I had to help him into his chair.
That's true.
He is my favorite local cinephile. Any guesses as to who it might be? David, don't guess. You can't guess.
But you just said David. Now
That's
we
a
can't.
hint.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
now
a
we-
hint.
That's
now
another
we
hint.
know.
Yeah, it is a dear friend of all of ours, someone who is on all of our lists, except for Kevin's, and we can bring up that if you want. It is David Tiberius Mann.
Just perfect. That's
Yes,
right.
yeah.
He
Just
is
like-
on all of our lists. In fact, he was going to be my mystery guest on February 11th.
We did
But
have
I'm learning today that that's not going to happen.
and David and I did
Surprise.
exchange. David was like, Gretchen called me. What do I do? I was like, avoid her. Yeah, go to the hospital.
She's used to it.
I do that, and that's normal.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
is.
so normal.
Yeah, I said,
Avoiding
"Hey,
Thank
Gretchen."
you for
Yeah.
coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
A couple things. Obviously, I do want to talk about the land bank, and you are a dear friend of mine and an incredibly smart and just a great buddy. But I don't think a lot of people know much about you, and we're not going to do a real deep dive because I know that you were a part of the CIA in your youth, so some of it has been
Yeah,
redacted,
that's right.
which is a popular thing.
That's why the fake middle name.
That's right. Or is it? Yeah.
That's where the fake last name
But
came from. It's like-
where are you from, David?
I grew up in Dayton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in Dayton. Went to Catholic school in Dayton.
Sure.
We have co-ed Catholic schools in Dayton, so that was the first thing when I moved here
Heretics.
that I was like,
What school did you go to?
I went to Carroll.
Okay.
Carroll,
Yes.
yeah.
The Fightin' Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know it so well.
Yeah, the good
Oh,
old-
yeah, that's
I did a
right.
lot of research.
The Patriots.
Is it the Patriots?
It is the
Yeah,
Patriots.
That's
Oh,
right.
boy.
Yep.
I can't believe I remember that.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Sure.
And I came to Toledo to go to the University of Toledo.
Sure.
And I
Never going to be a flyer. It was,
Yeah, no.
packed your bags
All
and-
of my friends went to the University of Dayton.
yeah.
And I wanted to go a little farther away.
Yeah.
And so picked Toledo. I was going to be an engineering major. That's why I picked Toledo. Great engineering school.
Yeah.
I never knew that about
Yeah,
you.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And then over the summer, before I started, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be an engineer. So I did the next best thing, which is I became an English major.
That's right. The natural
Normal
progression.
normal
That's right.
progression.
Freed up a little time.
flipping through the course catalog.
Yeah.
It was like
Well, the E's are
engineering,
next to each other.
English.
Yeah.
let's
Yeah,
stay there.
yeah. It was just
Right.
like I didn't go any farther.
Yeah, that's right. It was next door.
Yeah.
It just was God's will, which I learned from
Yeah.
the good old Carroll Patriots.
You got it.
That's
you
right.
got it.
Yeah, that's right.
There, nobody's going to see the show.
Yeah.
No, no.
In the
Period.
Dayton area.
No, actually,
My
we're
mom-
We're big in Dayton.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
my-
She's our next special
My
guest.
Fa-
mom-
parents are
my
still
mom
in
is gonna
Dayton?
Love this. Yeah, my family's still in Dayton. My brother and his family live in Kettering, which is a suburb. I'm sure people know a lot of Dayton suburbs, but I'm actually from Dayton. Like,
Yeah.
grew up in the city.
Yeah,
Like,
proud. That's
When
right.
did you realize after you were here at the University of Toledo that you were going to stay here? Was it a conscious decision, or it just because you were doing so well, it just happened?
It's a good question. I was involved in a lot of student activities, helped to recreate the college Democrats a long time, like when John Kerry was running for president. That's how Gretchen and I met.
You're
actually.
kidding
Yeah,
me.
because then I got involved in some local campaigns, worked for County Commissioner Pete Gherkin when he was running for commissioner, worked in the same fun office with Gretchen, who
We
was
had an office on Adams Street that was Pete Gherkin for commissioner, and Wade Kapsakavich was running for treasurer
Right.
the
Okay.
first
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we shared office space
We
there.
hung out together.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me some that was
Gretchen
10
was in
years
the
ago, 15 years
dark
ago?
back
I was
part
in
of
the
the
back.
office. We were in the more lit part.
Yeah, sure. That's how this show is. That's how the lighting
I
is
think
here.
that Wade just
Yeah.
leached onto that office, basically.
Yeah.
And they're
How
like,
long
"There's
ago are
your-"
we talking?
This is 90.
This is 2004.
I was going to say,
yeah.
I was going to say John Kerry, 2004.
Yeah. Gretchen, you were-
90.
Gretchen was still in law school.
Gretchen was in her 90s.
Oh my God, David, you remember this better than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a good
2004.
memory. That's what I
Yeah,
have.
that
I have a good
that's good.
memory.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah, so English-
bad hair today. Good memory.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to cut most of you out anyway, so don't worry.
Perfect.
English major, that was something that was you felt right at home with? You loved
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. Well, and to be, maybe not popular these days, but I was an English major and a women's and gender studies major. Creative writing, poetry, that's the stuff I really enjoyed, but also a
Interesting.
women's and gender studies major.
And that's where the money comes.
I don't mean this disingenuously when I say this, but like, what was the plan
What-
to do with an English major? Like, did you want
I'm
to
sure
teach?
your mom asked you this question as well.
Oh, I don't know that I had a plan.
Yeah.
Like what? Yeah, a lot of growing up, I thought, I'm probably going to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Like that would be fun, and I think that public service has always been in my heart.
What's
How
your
did you
folks-
first get to
I'm sorry, it's your
connected
guest.
with Pete Gherkin to do that campaign?
Involved with the local party,
Okay.
met Paula Ross. Folks might know Paula
Yeah,
Ross.
yes.
Got an interview. They were looking to hire somebody to sort of manage some of the day-to-day stuff, and I got an interview. The funny part of that interview is that the folks in the room all wanted to pick me. Pete wanted to pick another young woman who I think he fell in love with and
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
she was great and
Yeah.
whatever, and they overruled him. So I'm so happy about that.
That's
so
nice.
Mark Lutke and Pete's wife Polly Taylor Gherkin,
Sure.
like that group of folks. So that's how I got involved, and it just kind of grew from there. I think politics, government, public service is what this all turned into. And
Is that in your DNA from your folks? What did they do?
yeah, my mom worked for the Dayton Police. She wrote downtown parking tickets. There's a name for that I think is kind
Jerk?
of jerk. Yeah. Well, yes, she wasn't loved. No, I learned how to be yelled at by the
Yeah.
public. I
Yeah.
think from my mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like she was a meter maid.
Yeah.
It's what used to, like. Although I think that's like I'm not sure that's the right term anymore.
Right.
Most of your, at least half of your studies at the University of Toledo would tell you that that's not the appropriate term.
That's
for
right.
that.
That's what the women's and gender studies major taught me. Maybe not, but like what? So my mom, public servant. My dad managed like auto parts plants, a junkyard. He
Sure.
worked for the city of Dayton for a time too. So yeah, lots of police in my family actually. But
Interesting.
Police is public service.
Right,
And so,
that's-
Of
yeah,
course
I
it
think
is.
I grew
Yeah.
up thinking that was a really honorable way to help the world.
So, I mean, grew up attending private schools. I mean, did you
Yeah.
grow up connected to a church or other community service in any way beyond just like public service through employment?
Yeah, I don't know that.
Attended.
Attended.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. My dad's side of the family's Catholic. My mom's side is much more non-denominational.
Yeah.
But I don't know that church was my big thing.
Yeah.
No offense to folks that it is.
Of course.
But involved in a lot of things. I wasn't the most popular kid in school.
Get
You
out
were
of
the-
town.
You were the most popular.
I was not.
Oh, you said you're not.
I was not.
I
Yeah.
would
No,
find that surprising.
You just you grow up.
Yeah.
You get maybe cooler. I'm not cool, but
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cooler.
it was a good time.
Cooler.
But I think I felt limited in some ways in Dayton. I wanted to find,
Spread your wings.
spread your wings.
I get it.
Yeah, and Toledo was just a perfect place for that.
So, worked for Pete Gherkin on his campaign.
Yeah.
And then, what was your first kind of full-time public service job working for the city?
Yeah, I worked for the county. Pete won. I think he was surprised at that. And so the next thing he did, he asked me to be his assistant. And I didn't expect, I think, working on that campaign that somehow that would turn into a job.
Right.
I was just too young to think that far ahead. But had a great time for a couple of years working as Pete's assistant. Worked as the county's public information officer for a few years.
Yeah.
The Great Recession hit. That was a tough time
Yeah.
for everything. Worked for Commissioner Tina Skelton-Wozniak for a time.
Yeah.
And then involved into this new thing that the county was creating called the Lucas County Land Bank. And
We're going to get that in our second segment, but of all those gigs, which one was the most difficult?
the public information,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just tough.
Unrelenting.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I think the interesting dynamic of our county commissioners, I know that folks know about that. This was a time period where the commissioners were Pete and Tina Ben Conniff. Folks might remember Ben Conniff.
Yeah.
Boo Ben
Boo
Conniff.
Ben.
Yeah.
Boo
Boo Ben.
Ben.
It's still one of the greatest
It is.
videos.
This is like
Sure.
a national hero.
He's got to be making money off of that video at this point.
I don't know.
Yeah, mostly humiliation.
You bring him on the show.
Yeah,
right?
he's right behind the bookshelf.
Yeah, oh great.
Yeah, he's on our short
That's
list.
our
Yeah.
February 11th guest.
Yeah,
There you go.
this is
We're gonna switch
whatever
it up.
happened to Ben.
Whatever happened to Ben?
That's right.
But sometimes the commissioners just, they don't, like this is public service, but
Yeah.
it's also like sometimes they don't perfectly see eye to eye.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest
And they're
part about
human
that.
beings,
Yeah, the hardest
right?
part
And
about
there's
that was
microphones.
being asked to say write a speech for Ben, and then being asked to write a speech for Pete.
Yeah.
That was maybe the opposite
Yeah.
of what Ben was
Right.
saying in the same day, and that's just like a tough thing to
Right.
work through. But I think it worked well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I did mention one of my clues, which allowed them to guess that it was you, that you are one of my favorite movie consumers, which you consume an overwhelming amount of movies.
Yeah, like a sad amount.
So that's
He's
why we don't
very
have to-
good at it.
Yes,
Very,
no,
very good.
I've been begging him maybe to do a segment. I have my own trivia for you. I asked
my.
It's time for Matt's
Wacky
Yeah.
quiz.
So these are movie questions that involve either land or banks.
Oh.
So you're getting it right.
How
all right.
exciting.
Yes. Okay. Hope
Okay.
that's not sarcasm. In It's a Wonderful Life, what kind of business does George Bailey run?
He runs a local bank.
He runs a local bank. See,
Okay.
just a softball, first one right.
Okay,
Which
thank you.
movie features a bank robbery where the robber says, "I rob banks because that's where the money is"?
Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde. Good for
Shut
you.
up. Did you give him these answers in
I
advance?
did, absolutely. Yeah, I thought that'd be fun. And Mary Poppins, what does the father do for a living?
Oh, I don't love Mary Poppins. He's a banker?
He's a banker. I'll
He's
take
a banker.
that.
Okay.
All right.
Gretchen may
An
have-
English banker?
That's right.
Yes.
You don't have to
He
show
works
off.
very long
No one
hours.
likes
He's a checker.
No one likes your snobbery.
Gretchen does.
What animated movie features a duck who is famous for swimming in a pile of money? Also made into a television show.
DuckTales.
DuckTales, good for you.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
Scrooge McDuck?
Yep,
Scrooge
thank you.
McDuck.
Yeah.
All right,
Big
the last
deal.
one. In
80s
The
kid.
Wizard of Oz, what valuable item motivates characters to travel across the land?
In which? The Wizard of
The
Oz?
Wizard of
What,
Oz.
what valuable item? Ruby slippers? No.
That's what I guessed, but incorrect.
Meeting
item
the
that-
wizard?
Like
I mean, it's the Yellow Brick Road.
yeah.
Their self-esteem?
Land?
It's the Wicked Witch's broom. It's how
Oh.
Dorothy's way
Okay,
home.
you know what? The thing about the recent Wicked movies
They've screwed
just
the whole
kind of
thing up.
messed up
They
the
have.
real
Yeah,
story.
sure. Well,
David,
wait.
what's your opinion on,
Matt Killam.
no.
Yeah. in
What's
9
your
months.
opinion on the perceived or real decline of people going to the movie theaters? Like, do you enjoy the movies as much streaming them as you do in the movie theater? And is it about the popcorn?
It's not about the popcorn
Okay.
for me.
Okay.
But I do love popcorn. No, I think that there's something really magical about
agree.
being. I mean, the world is so full of distractions, and like, let me look at my phone because someone's telling me to do that. It's really hard to do that if you're sitting in a dark movie theater and you're just focused on whatever is being presented. And there's just no better experience
I agree.
of that. It's not like they're not shooting them so that you watch them on your phones.
Well, tell me, do you have a favorite movie experience? Like
Ever.
yeah.
I saw Jurassic Park.
Sure.
And some we were like on a like short little vacation to Indiana.
Yeah.
Beautiful Indiana. And we went to some like theater where there was like a million kids and everybody was like screaming, and I
Yeah.
don't think I remember the movie much
Yeah,
except
just
that,
the
like
scene.
the scene that was just like really fun.
Yeah.
Do you two have them? A favorite movie?
I remember in grade school, they took us out of school to go, this was like 4th or 5th grade, to go see Gandhi,
Yeah.
Oh,
the movie Gandhi. I
Okay.
still remember that. Like that
Who
we
was starred
went-
in that?
Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, right.
He won
I
the
almost
Oscar.
said
He
Ben
won the
Vereen.
Oscar.
Yeah.
Ben Vereen.
Ben
He
Conniff.
might. He was in the back.
Ben Conniff was.
Ben Conniff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Ben
right.
Ooh,
You know.
Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have a favorite movie experience, right? I'm not a big movie theater guy. I agree with you that when I watch movies at home, I'm often multitasking, which means I'm not doing either
Anything.
one all that well.
Yeah.
But when I go to movie theater, I don't do that. But I don't go that often. Like we'll take the family now to go see occasionally a movie when it comes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm more of a, now it's like I'll just wait for it to
Sure.
To stream.
wait for it to
What's
stream.
What a
your-
long and not fun answer, Kevin.
What's your Academy Award pick movie for Best Picture
For Best
this
Picture
year?
this year?
Yeah.
It's easy.
Teen Wolf 2.
I'm gonna guess.
2003. No. One Battle After
I
Another.
knew you were
Yeah,
gonna say
One
that.
Battle After
So
Another
good.
is a
It
masterpiece.
is. Have you
It's
seen that
so-
one?
It's a masterpiece.
It is so good. Yes. I
Although
agree.
Sinners is right up there, and Sinners is very, very, very good too. You
What's the
didn't like Sinners?
worst movie you've ever seen?
Ever walked out of a movie?
Nothing but. I've never walked out of a movie. I don't think I've ever walked out of a movie. I got an embarrassing story about my husband, but I'm not going to tell it here because he's already going to be mad about
Yeah.
me
Sure.
saying that.
Yeah.
We got a whole other segment for humiliation.
It's good. Perfect.
Yeah.
He's our next guest. Come on out.
Have anybody seen this movie, Nothing But Trouble?
Sure.
It's like Dan Aykroyd and John
Julia Roberts.
Sounds
Candy.
terrible.
No. Chevy Chase. It's It's like about some
Are
crazy.
you thinking of Three Amigos?
No. Although I'm not sure. I don't know.
Great.
That's not great. Nothing But Trouble is the worst movie. Although when I was a kid growing up, we saw Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yes.
Remember
Oh
the Ernest
my
movie?
God. Yeah,
of course.
And there's like a troll that gets in someone's bed. I am still haunted by that troll
Yeah.
in that bed
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So those are the worst
Terrifying.
movies. Yeah.
Ernest,
Terrifying.
the Ernest.
Sorry, Ernest
Ernest.
fans.
And how did that even become a thing?
So good.
How did you get into movies? I mean, was this as a kid you guys were watching movies all the time?
I
or
was
just
like a latchkey kid, you know. Like I think it was the thing that kept me company. You
Yeah.
know, like when my brother and I were just at home
Sure.
after school, waiting, you know, doing whatever. I just like movies.
These two clowns have never seen any of the Star Wars.
Yeah, I know. I heard that.
Is that a surprise to you?
I heard that. It's very surprising
Yeah,
to me.
thank you.
Not
Are you into
surprising
the, like
to-
sci-fi things?
I am a big Star Trek fan.
So am I.
Star Trek.
Yes, thank
Star
you.
Trek. Also, my middle name.
Yeah.
Because it's also James Kirk's middle name. That's
Star
where
Trek.
he got that from.
I did
Your
not
middle
know
name
that.
is Star Trek?
Yeah, totally.
All right. Yeah, Star Trek.
Do you know what state
Tiberius.
Captain Kirk was born in?
Yeah, Iowa.
South Dakota.
Oh.
Oof, I don't know. I've never known you to be wrong.
Born in?
In the character.
Oh, the character. I thought it was Iowa.
Why do we know
pretty
the
sure South
character's
Dakota.
birthplace?
Anyway, Star Wars is
spent a lot
fine.
of time alone.
Star Wars is fine. Star Wars, it seems to be like a celebration sometimes of fascism, and Star Trek is about what the world could be.
Ugh, don't put
if
your
we
big
do
brain
better.
on this.
If we do better. So that's what people should look at Star Trek because it's always been on the forefront. Of
Oh
just
my
like
goodness. So I
a
know
better world.
Matt threw some trivia questions at you. Like, is this, once people figure out that you're a big movie buff, does this happen? Like, I've got my sister-in-law and her boyfriend are huge movie buffs, and I love to play the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon,
Oh.
but I don't use Kevin Bacon.
Okay.
I just pick like 2 random characters
Canadian bacon?
and make them connect. Make them connect, right?
Characters from
Like,
I Love Trouble.
Yeah.
it's like, I need you to connect, Pee Wee Herman and,
daycare.
Chris Rock, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, good luck.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I don't get a lot of those questions, but Kevin, we should hang
Do
out.
you participate in any trivia teams? Do you ever do trivia nights?
Not regularly. Although we
What
won a
a
couple years
waste
ago.
of a brain.
I'm sorry.
You solve it.
You're using it
Kind of a
for
whole bunch-
real work.
No. The Land Bank team, we have done trivia. We always do well. It's
Yes.
a fun time.
Spelling?
Yeah, my friend Mara Fink worked us
Yeah.
into her trivia team, and we won the whole
Oh my gosh.
thing, $500
That's
a
great.
couple years ago. So yeah,
that?
so pretty good at trivia.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
poured
I
in
mean-
every penny of it.
That's worth at least $425 today.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, segment 2, we are going to be going into the land bank specifically, which is, I think, an unknown entity, but just a vital one, run incredibly well by you and team. I want to talk a little bit about your team. But Ben, so great to have you. But we'll get all the joking stuff out of the way and head back to the great work that you're doing across the county.
All right, we'll do that when we come back. More with David Tiberius Mann and the Land Bank here on our mystery guest version of the 419. We'll be right back.
To me, community means connecting to others.
I'm Donnie Miller, and welcome to The Point.
I love CBS Kids!
We're a community committed to education. Discover new ideas, dive into exciting subjects, and engage with the world around you.
I would send them personally a t-shirt. Crime doesn't pay in the old West End, pass it on. That's how we cleaned up the neighborhood.
Vision loss for people is not the end.
It's a story, it's the next chapter.
WGTE Public Media invites you to Get Out and Play Day.
Monday through Friday, it's the 419 powered by WGTE. With Matt Killam, Gretchen DeBacker, I'm Kevin Mullen. What can people expect on the show?
It's going to be an hour, a reminder of why this is a great place to live, work, and play.
WGTE, where you come to watch, listen, and learn.
Welcome back into the 419. We're having a fun conversation with our friend David Mann, Matt's mystery guest.
Yeah.
Matt, you and David got into a bit of a spat
row
in the last segment.
That's right. Yeah, I like most things, I need to start out with an apology. David,
to Captain
yes,
Kirk.
yeah. It turns out we are not friends. So, my apology.
Yeah, I'll see myself out.
That's right. Captain Kirk was, in fact, born in Riverside, Iowa, on the show. So I'm sure we've got a bunch of.
And what lesson did you learn from that interaction?
I don't know.
To never question David.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of things.
Except for when
that's not good for my ego.
Yeah.
Except for when you want to literally ask him a question right now.
So I think you and I probably first met when you were working for Tina. I think is when I kind of first met you.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But then I remember you taking over the land bank, and I at that time had no idea what it is. Now, all these years later, I still don't know that I really understand what the land bank is.
Fair.
How long have you been there, and what is the land bank?
Yeah, the land bank's been around for 15 years, and I've been there essentially the whole time. So 15 years of good work.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Yeah.
I know, time flies. The land bank is a couple things, but the thing I think people most understand us to be, if you're paying any attention to what we're doing, is to help the community make abandoned properties useful again. We, especially 15 years ago, just dealing with a lot of challenges in our neighborhoods of properties that people had walked away from or were underwater in, unable to pay the property taxes, or speculating, out-of-town speculators who own properties that they just weren't taking care of. And the land bank is a tool to help get control of those properties, figure out ways to make them useful again. And it ranges everything from a vacant lot that might be next to someone's house to land for the Manhattan Marsh Metro Park, the downtown Spitzer building that Gretchen used to work in, the former St. Anthony's Church in the Junction neighborhood, you know, the whole range of properties that our community might be trying to tackle, but we have the tools to be the owner and then put that property into the right path as we go forward.
What happened prior to the land bank? I mean, these just sat vacant forever?
Yeah, prior to the land bank, and I think this is one of the innovations, this was a model that was borrowed out of Michigan that had been dealing with some of these challenges for a little bit longer than even we had in Ohio. And prior to the land bank, properties might be delinquent on their taxes. They just go up for a sheriff's sale. They'd be sold maybe to somebody who never even visited the property, maybe never even was here in Toledo or Lucas County. And then they might realize after what they bought, and then they would just let the taxes go delinquent and the cycle would just start over again. So there was no real plan to make a difference, to change the trajectory of what was going on. And you know, one of the things that's often said about the land bank is that we are focused on those abandoned properties. We are really about all the other properties around that, the properties that people live in.
We can talk about the commercial side, certainly in Spitzer and other big projects that are going on, but talk a little bit about the cancer really that abandoned property is on that street.
Yeah.
And what it does to the rest of that neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a problem just in the physical environment. You know, you've got a boarded up house that might be attracting like ne'er-do-wells or animals or all kinds of things. Well, we can talk about animals later because that's part of the gift I brought.
Oh, good.
But it's also affecting the values in the neighborhood. You know, you're living next to an abandoned property. All of a sudden, your house is worth less. You might be thinking differently about what you might say, I want to sell. I want to get out of this neighborhood because it's fallen apart, and that's just affecting everybody around it. It's also psychological.
Thank you.
I think it wears people down to feel like nobody is sticking up for them, standing up for the neighborhood, making the kinds of investments that they might see happening in other neighborhoods.
And it's difficult for individuals to find out who owns that property,
Absolutely.
how to get it mowed, who are they supposed to call? Like if they are the directly next door neighbor, to figure out how they can help even just take care of it or make it look better.
Yeah.
It's difficult to all of the different government agencies prior to figure out how to make it any better for themselves.
Yeah, real estate is so complex. Anybody that's bought a house knows you go to that closing and you sign 1 million pieces of paper.
100%.
Imagine doing that the 7,000 times that the land bank has done it in terms of dealing with property, but we're experts. We have a great team of people that I work with, and I'm so proud to work with them, who make that happen in a way that the community otherwise is not going to be able to figure out on its own.
I've got a couple of questions about the team itself, what it's comprised of, and also how you do your planning. Do you mind giving us a little bit of insight as to both of those things?
Yeah, we're a small, mighty team.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's 10 people that work at the land bank, dealing with thousands of different projects at any given point, in all different levels of complexity. I'm really proud to work with them, and we've got lawyers on the team, we've got planners on the team, we've got construction experts on the team, we've got community experts on the team, and so we're all working together trying to find partnerships. But really, we work so much with the community, with the residents, with the neighborhoods, with the other organizations. Again, lots of work with the Metro Parks, as Matt knows.
We are not able to celebrate one of our crowning achievements, having a park within 5 miles of every Lucas County resident, if it wasn't for the land bank and partnership and the thinking and strategy that you brought to the table. So at the risk of beating this to death, we could not have, that literally would not have happened without you and your team's expertise. So that we are made greater. Yeah, well, it's true.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Planning for us is, it evolves as the community evolves. The neighborhood challenges that we're facing in 2026 are not the same ones that we were facing when we got started in 2010. Back then, I think people would have expected to see a lot of demolition, a lot of properties that just needed to go because there was no other choice. And we've moved away from a lot of that. There's still some of that needs to happen, but I think that's what people misunderstand sometimes about what we do. That's not all we do. What we're focused on right now, planning-wise, is to help to create home ownership opportunities. We are going to be more and more in a challenge of folks wanting to be homeowners, wanting to be in neighborhoods all throughout the community, but not necessarily being able to find high quality homes that they can afford. And we're working with state grants and some other programs to help create those opportunities right now. We have 25 houses under renovation ourselves right now.
Wow.
We did 25 in the last 10 years collectively, and so we're doing 25 at the same moment right now. 25 is not enough to meet all the challenges, but it's more than we've ever done to try to help
That's amazing. You must be so proud.
Yeah, it's a hell of
incredible.
a lot of work.
It's really interesting looking at as a side note, the land bank social media page, especially on Instagram, because they post pictures of the things they find in the houses and then the renovated houses. So it's a fun
Lots
thing
of
to look
people
at.
like dolls.
Yes,
Creepy
some
dolls.
weird creepy dolls you find. Yeah.
They're probably from the Doll Museum.
Yeah, it's regrettably closed.
Oh,
I'm sure you were
yeah,
tuning
we
in.
are the owners now.
Yeah, that's right. The proud owners. The proud owners of the Seneca
It'll be
County.
opening up again soon.
That's right. We're making the Doll Museum great again. Your words.
Who are you partnering with to renovate those houses? I mean, how is that? Obviously, you're not out there with a hammer yourself.
Some of our team is out there with a hammer themselves, but we hire a lot of local contractors to do that work. We're partnering with Maumee Valley Habitat for Humanity. We're partnering with Historic South in the Old South End. We're partnering with a number of other organizations, partnering with our other local government partners to work through that. We have a couple homes that we are selling to first-time home buyers with Habitat for Humanity in a couple weeks. So happy for them.
exciting.
Yeah, no
it's like
kidding.
2 houses, in fact, in a neighborhood over in West Toledo in the Trilby neighborhood that are right next door to each other. So we renovated both of them
Cool.
right next door.
Yeah.
It's just a fun opportunity to create something that, for those folks, this is going to be their permanent home.
Maybe that's it. And there's a million things I'm sure you're proud of, but is there, not necessarily an aha moment, but is there a particular project, either when you were first started or that warmed you particularly or keeps you driving at this?
I don't have a favorite. There's just so many.
So many, yeah. That's a fair answer.
I think that some of the stuff that we've been doing downtown is really great.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it communicates how much we do in all the other neighborhoods.
That's right.
There are 80 plus neighborhoods in our community.
Yeah.
And we're doing so much in any one individual one of them. Like some of the home renovations that we've done are just really beautiful when they're finished. And we can do more than somebody might otherwise be able to do to create something that otherwise might not exist.
How many land banks are there in the country?
There are hundreds and hundreds of land banks in the country. There are 71 in Ohio.
Oh my goodness.
71 counties out of 88 counties in Ohio now have a land bank. We were the second one to be created when land banks were created 15 years ago.
Who's the first?
Cuyahoga County,
I've
Cleveland.
never liked that one.
I know, right?
Right.
Well, I'm curious, like,
Now they can't watch this either.
That's, you can't watch it.
We're losing.
We're getting on, yeah.
we're just
Regional
slowly,
approach is dead.
Yeah.
yeah, we're slowly annexing ourselves from the rest of Ohio.
Talk about West Virginia next.
Yeah.
I'm curious about why, right? There's a growing, and I can't even figure out which side of the aisle is arguing for more government or less government in particular areas. I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
But why is this a task that the government should be doing,
Yeah.
right? Versus a private entity, versus a nonprofit, versus a don't do it at all.
No, it's a great question, Kevin. And I think that one of the things that we are is both a public organization and a nonprofit that operates a lot more like the private sector. I think that's really our innovation. I think one of the things that people saw is that government alone couldn't answer some of these really complicated real estate challenges that were popping up for the first time. And so creating land banks is to create the kinds of public powers and some funding that otherwise is not going to exist, because these are not projects that pay for themselves. If they were, the market would solve them. People would step up and do them, and that would be fine. But these projects need investment. That's going to have to come from the government. But at the same time, it can't be the kind of stereotypically slow, bureaucratic way of approaching it, or we're never going to get anything done. So we are a hybrid, a blend of both. I think that's why it makes sense for us to exist, because we can do something differently that didn't exist before.
That's well said.
Move faster.
It's an example sort of the market following then, right? So if you take the four corners, that's going to happen. You're investing in those buildings, you're going to renovate those, and then assume that the market will follow. People will rent those apartments, retail spaces will go in, restaurants will go in, and so then that's their the contribution to those spaces after.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't own and operate properties. We don't rent properties. We catalyze a change that can then pick back up in terms of the private sector, in terms of the investment that we need to see.
One of the many ways that I kill time, or I try to multitask while I'm watching movies, is I'll go
Rather spending time with your family.
That's right. Rather than spend time with my family. I'll look at commercial real estate and just sort of dream like what could be, right? What could I do with that space? What business could go into there? But I also do the same thing on the land bank site, kind of looking at the properties that are available there.
Okay, Kevin, buy a house.
Get a rental property.
I have a house. Yeah.
And it's a
buy another one.
Yeah.
All
right.
I've seen it. You could help him. Yeah, you should knock it down.
There were days when I've thought about that too. But I think that's the reality, is that you've got somebody that maybe looks at getting into real estate and saying, hey, I want to flip a house, or I want to become a landlord. I mean, is that something that can happen through the land bank?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Our website is a great resource.
It is.
LucasCountyLandBank.org.
Yes.
But we make lots of property available for folks to step up and renovate themselves. Sometimes we're renovating it ourselves, and then they're going to buy it with a mortgage, like many of us have already done. But there's lots of opportunity there. We list all of our properties with local realtors because we don't expect people to find the land bank's website as the first place they're looking at. So there's always a sign in the front yard. They're always on Zillow and all of the other sites that you're thinking of. And so you might not know it's a land bank opportunity when you see it. You might learn that after the fact. But we have had over 800 homes and commercial properties renovated by third parties, renovated by partners, renovated by the private sector, and brought back to life. It's more than anybody else has done in our community in 15 years.
Well, I live in the Old West End, and I can tell you that there are blocks that have been changed thanks to the land bank's work.
And this is probably outside your area, but I'm curious. I mean, I see.
What's a bonefish?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, hard to say.
What is what's the land bank's role, or reason why land bank isn't involved? I see a growing trend in what's the guy who's cleaning up the vacant lots.
Restore the block.
Restore the block, right? Yeah. Those kind of sort of neighborhood heroes that are stepping in to say, I'm going to clean this up. What's the land bank's role or position on things like that?
Love that guy.
Yeah.
I think he cleaned
Doing
up.
good
I
work.
think he cleaned up one of our properties recently. I mean, like, it's kind of hard for him not to, because we do own any number of things that look pretty abandoned while they're in transition. I think it's great stuff. I think for a while our community sort of was like feeling all the pressure of the economy and was sitting back and saying, we need other people to solve this. We're not going to solve anything as a community unless we all step up in the right ways. There is a role for us to play. There is a role for other organizations to play. But there is sometimes the space where a guy can show up on his own dime and clean up a property that otherwise looks pretty abandoned. And that's a great thing because it means that somebody cares. Yeah. And we need more of that.
One of the things that people might not know about you, in addition to your work at the Land Bank, is your your work with elected officials and in democratic politics. And you probably won't say this about yourself, but you are a trusted advisor to elected leaders in this community. People wanting to run for office, they turn to you for advice on both what to do and how to respond to things. And I've seen firsthand your measured, intelligent, common sense, real responses to issues that come up. I'm wondering how you, throughout your career, have developed those skills. Are you like that at home as well with your husband? Are you like that with your friend group? Is it a particular skill as it relates just to solving problems in politics? How do you come to that personality trait?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I like solving problems. Maybe that's the engineer piece of this that comes back to it. I'm very fortunate to have lots of friends and lots of relationships and just be able to participate in what the community really means. And that includes, elected officials. Mm-hmm. That includes politics. I think sometimes people often see politics as like a game. Mm-hmm. Or something that might, look like a bunch of fighting or a bunch of back and forth, but it has real consequences.
Yes.
And what I care most about is actually being able to see positive change happen. And sometimes that's going to happen from the private sector, and sometimes that's going to happen from the nonprofit sector and the philanthropic sector, and sometimes that's going to happen from government, and it should go well,
Yeah. For the most.
Do I give advice to Eugenio, my husband? You'll have to ask him.
Yeah, and we have. Come on out. Yeah.
All right, it's now one of our favorite times of the show. It's time for Gretchen's Wacky Quiz.
So many quizzes.
Yeah, that's right.
This is a quiz-heavy show.
So we've got a whole deck of cards. I'm going to ask you 4 rapid-fire questions. Gretchen's going to ask you for your favorite thing in the region, and Matt is going to grill you for 9 words.
He's prepped.
To describe Toledo.
I love these writing out 9 lines.
We'll do it. We'll do it together.
Boy.
So I love. We got a whole deck of cards that Gretchen brought in before the first show that I pull a random card every time, and I love how much they connect to our guests. Question number 1, legitimately on this card, which terrible movie do you love?
Which terrible movie do I love? Gosh.
Can't say her name.
I gotta say Snowpiercer.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah, yes.
Snowpiercer?
Snowpiercer. That is not really a terrible movie, but it's Matt and I's running joke for a decade.
That's right.
Which game do you play the most on your phone?
The Microsoft Solitaire app.
Interesting.
Which is like less addictive than all those other like Candy Crush ones, I think.
Yeah.
But
and
just
less annoying.
just as waste of time.
Yeah, please tell me that's less addictive when you already identified it as the one you play the most.
It's all relative.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. What's the best advice you've been given?
Stay humble.
Okay.
And this is the hardest one. What was your first email address?
My first email address was a
Tiberius.
Prodigy email address. This is pathetic. This is why I was so cool in high school. It was the name of a Star Trek character, and then my birthday backwards, so it was Damar137.
Oh my God!
Nerd like
alert.
Prodigy or something, you know. Like,
I'm
gonna sign you up for random cat facts now. Thank you for that.
What's your number 1 most favorite, best thing about the region?
Lebanese food.
All right, we gotta go fast. We got 9 words.
Creative.
Silly. Lebanese food.
Exciting.
We'll give you for that. Exciting.
Wonderful. Smart.
Interesting. One more bonus one.
Land bank.
Land bank.
Up until
one word. That's the biggest brain in the region right there.
Yeah. And I gotta give you a gift. This is our unofficial mascot at the land bank. This is Gary the groundhog.
Yes.
Your groundhog. People hate groundhogs. Apparently, we've learned this.
Yes.
Unfortunately, because they get into your foundations, and so people call us a lot and complain. We adopted Gary as a positive mascot. He's humble.
He's so soft.
He's hardworking. he never stops.
He never stops working.
He never. That's our land bank philosophy.
And he's
so
got a heart-shaped nose.
Yeah, and he smells like
our whole team was so happy that
Smells like the real groundhog.
Gary the groundhog.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks,
David, thank you so much. Matt, nice job.
Yes.
Fantastic guest. I should put you on. I'll put you on my list.
Okay, looking forward to it.
We'll bring you back.
on my list. Yeah.
When we come back, we'll wrap up this Friday edition of the 419, powered by WGTE. Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at witroadvisors.com.
WorkSpring. HR issues and employee well-being go hand in hand. WorkSpring supports employers through compliance, training, and wellness because healthy workplaces don't happen by accidents. Learn more at workspring.org.
Toledo Refining Company, a subsidiary of PDF Energy. Toledo Refining Company is a supplier of fuels that keep our region moving. Located in Oregon, Ohio, the refinery processes crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products.
And TARTA, celebrating its 55th year of connecting Northwest Ohioans to their community. More information at tarta.com. Welcome back into the 419, a Friday edition. Just wrapped up a conversation with Matt's mystery guest, David Mann. And now we're joined by a friend of ours from WGTE, Tina Bossenbroek. Tina, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
What's your role here at WGTE?
I am the Director of Educational Services.
What does that mean?
And can you help, Gretchen?
Educate us.
Yeah.
Yes. So Educational Services, we focus mainly on reaching parents, teachers, and kids. So through various programming, through PBS Kids, through outreach events, through a whole variety of things, we reach out to those groups and really focus in on how education encompasses all three of those groups.
If I have this right, if you also have brilliant children yourself, right?
So I don't know if I should say that if they're going to listen.
Well, I can say it. So if you don't mind just taking a second to brag about it. So you are absolutely a parent that have educated children to be successes. Where do they go to school?
My oldest is working his PhD at UCLA.
Yep.
My middle son is about to graduate from RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic, and already has a job.
Yeah.
Yay, in this economy. And my youngest just started his freshman year at Calvin University in Michigan.
So big wins all the way around. So
yes.
although you have got a couple that they're not out yet, but big success stories. You must be very proud.
Yes, I am proud.
Now, were they PBS kids? What did they tune into?
They are. I joke now, you can figure out how old people are when you ask them what their favorite PBS Kids show is.
Yes.
So I think back, like my oldest loved Dragon Tales. We watched Dragon Tales endlessly.
Yeah.
You know, my middle one loved Word World.
Yeah, sure.
At that point. And my youngest one kind of watched a whole bunch. I'm not really sure he had like one favorite.
Yeah. Gretchen, you remember when Talkies came out? You loved it.
I was impressed with Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And Sesame Street's back.
Yes. And an important show. But talk to us a little bit about the offerings here and things that you're proud of.
So one of the great things, and it's tonight actually, is our next movie night.
This is really cool.
Yeah, so quarterly we offer movie nights for families. Right now, I mean, in this economy and in this landscape and everything, offering a safe, free, educational night out for families is great. And sometimes it's grandparents taking their grandkids, you know, so the parents can get a date, which is another great, you know, idea all the way around. But so tonight we have our quarterly movie night, and we're premiering a new show, actually. PBS Kids have been putting out a lot of great new content. Tonight is Phoebe and Jay, kind of that play on PB and J.
Sure.
And so they're 6-year-old twins who live with their dad in an apartment building. Their grandma lives right next door. And it's all about kind of everyday literacy.
Interesting.
So signs, menus, instructions.
Oh, great.
You know, labels on one of the episodes that we're going to show tonight talks about a label on a shirt and how to wash it, which, you know, having college students,
for 40 years.
You should learn how to do that. So your shirts don't.
What else have you shown? I know this isn't your first movie night. What else have people been enjoying?
Yeah, so one of the last one, Alma's Way, a Puerto Rican girl who lives in New York City.
Yeah.
We did Weather Hunters, which is a new show. Al Roker voices the dad, and he created the show, so it's all about weather issues.
Yeah.
Which my middle son loves that one because the star of the show is the middle child, which never happens.
About time, the unsung hero.
Yes.
Yeah.
You must
Which
be a
they
middle
constantly
child.
demand
Yeah,
because they never go
right. And they're usually the serial killers. I don't know if that's particularly accurate.
Not in this particular PBS Kids show.
Right.
That's right. That's right. That's a fair point. But it's a full night, though. I know that I've heard the team here talk about kids are kind of running around having a good time. There's tables and things. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, so in the studio here, we offer the show on the big screen so they can watch that. We have a book that goes along with the theme of the show.
Cool.
All of PBS Kids are very educational. They have learning goals and learning standards that they follow, so we offer a book related to that. Then we have interactive activities for families to participate in together. And everybody walks out of here with the book that we read, as well as more activities that they can do at home. Our sponsor for the evening, Joseph and Judith Conda, educators firmly believe in families learning together, so that was a very important part, that we send home things that they can continue that learning at home.
What age group is appropriate for those
Um,
nights?
so PBS Kids shows mostly kind of run from like 3 to 8 generally, but our movie nights are really all ages. We have the whole family coming, so we're not going to restrict it to one or another. Even high school kids, still like watching new shows and coming and
being
watching
together
what's
too.
new.
Yeah, that's.
Tina, how did you get to this position? Were you an educator at one point? Yeah.
Yes. So I taught for a long time, doing various roles. Most recently, middle school science. But because of my husband's career, we've moved a lot, so a little bit of a disjointed career.
Sure.
But after the pandemic, I started looking for other options of what to do, and I love public media. I grew up on public media. It was like a dream job for me. And so when this job came open, I applied, and here I am.
And the rest is history. Where were you from originally?
Zeeland, Michigan.
That
so the
is
west
my
part
favorite.
of Michigan.
Zeeland and the bedroom community for other parts of Michigan. What a beautiful space.
I identify cities based on, like, I instantly hear city and I go back to who is a player in a game that I announced that's from that city.
Yeah.
And this past fall, the goalie for the women's team at Lord's is from Zeeland, Michigan.
How about that?
Very nice. And if
Finally
maybe I'm
something to be
remembering, I
proud
think
of.
there was a girls basketball player too more recently that was from Zeeland as well.
So there's been 3 people we can at least confirm. Yourself.
Population
live there,
3.
yeah.
Well, now it's
Yeah.
2 because
Yeah.
you're here in Toledo.
Well, my parents still live there, so 5.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect.
How are people taking in PBS Kids programming now? Do they go to YouTube? Is it
Great question.
television? What are you finding? Where can people find it, and where are people getting it most often?
Yeah, so traditional TV, we still see that there's a large portion of the population that still watches on traditional TV. We're on all of the other platforms too, YouTube TV and all of those things. But there's a lot of streaming. There's a free app that you can get with PBS Kids to watch, and then also to play the educational games that go along with it. And the Games app is great because once you have the game on there, you don't need Wi-Fi to play it. So it's a wonderful game for kids.
So I have a 6 and a 3-year-old. That's how we consume all sorts of things, and they love it, as kids have been doing for.
So you watch the show and then you do a little game related to it. That's so great.
Yeah.
You said you grew up on public media. What was your PBS show as a kid?
I watched a lot of Sesame Street.
Yeah.
I watched Mr. Rogers, of course. All of it.
Is there ever sort of a tickle that you are now part of it?
It's interesting because you learn a lot, and I think I had some ideas that weren't correct before, and then you come and learn kind of the back part of it. And what I'm really impressed with is you watch these shows, and the producers of the shows pay attention to every single detail of the show. We get great inside information before these shows come out, and what they're looking at from the hairstyles and what's in the background and how they move and what signs are around, and I mean just every little detail. I'm so impressed with what PBS Kids does and what it's offering to our kids.
Can we talk about CPB versus PBS, just how that kind of impacts PBS Kids and what folks can see locally in terms of changes there? Will they see anything?
No, obviously with CPB closing and losing funding, we lost a lot of funding. From the education standpoint, we also lost state funding recently, so we're kind of trying to reimagine some things. But PBS Kids is going strong. This new show coming out is, testament to the fact that they're committed to continue to make quality programming for our kids, which
And
is
free.
really great. And free.
Free programming.
Yeah.
You talked about Mr. Rogers. I grew up on Mr. Rogers. I loved it. That between that and Sesame Street, and then my kids got to grow up with Daniel Tiger.
Yes.
And I see that you.
I brought. It must be a stuffed animal day
Yes.
today.
You can sit by our.
I brought you Daniel Tiger
Yes,
because
popular.
we are now neighbors in the building, so I thought that'd be a great
Yeah,
one to
thank you
be.
so much.
So I've never seen Daniel Tiger. What's his story? He's got a watch on.
So he is a spinoff from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and has his own show, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. Every summer at the zoo we do a Be My Neighbor Day.
How fun.
Which we get Daniel Tiger here and we work with the zoo and with PNC Grow Up Great, and we provide resources and educational activities for kids at the zoo as well.
Love it.
All
Me
with
too.
Daniel. And when he walks out, let me tell you, he is the preschool rock star.
I can
Screaming,
attest to that.
yelling,
That's right.
cheering.
And that's just you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
After I get my, chance, then I let the other
After
kids
you're
get their
sedated.
chance.
That's right.
Tina, thank you so much. If people want more information on PBS Kids, where can they find it?
You can go to our website, WGTE.org. You can call us. You can come to our movie night
Yes,
tonight.
yes.
Participate. We have Share a Story going on right now, which is a writing contest. All kinds of things. Sign up for our newsletter and you'll find out everything that's going on in the education department.
If movie night's taking place in the studio, we're going to need people to stay off of our set, because the last thing I need is for WGTE to realize that we could be replaced very easily
by children.
By 6-year-olds.
And should be.
Yeah.
Or by stuffed
That's right.
animals.
Tina, thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
everything
you.
you're doing, and thanks for
Yeah,
being on
me
the
too.
program.
You're the
Thanks.
best.
All right,
Thank
when we
you.
come back, we will put a bow on this Friday edition of the 419.
Every day when you're walking
You
down
laughed
the
with
street.
us. You learned with us.
Hi, neighbor.
We made sure
we're
your
together
childhood
again.
was special. Memories that could only be provided by PBS. For generations, we've given you programs that made a difference. Programs that entertained, informed, and inspired. And today is no different. This is WGTE Public Media in Toledo. It's where you belong.
Introducing The Local Thread, a community news series uniting voices and storytellers from across the region. In partnership with La Prensa, the Toledo Free Press, the Sojourner's Truth, Toledo Public Schools, and veteran journalist Jerry Anderson. The Local Thread brings you stories and conversations that connect our community. Hear it weeknights at 7 on FM 91 with early access on podcast platforms each morning. The Local Thread, only on WGTE.
Welcome back as we close out a Friday edition of the 419. This is a lot of fun. Matt, nice job with David.
Yeah, great show.
Friday
Yep. David is a fascinating guy in the land bank, does great work. So great, glad to have him on all of our lists.
Yeah.
A little bit of inside baseball. I didn't realize he was a cinephile, so.
Yeah, and Snowpiercer is one of his favorite movies. So I was shocked to hear that and tease him about with some regularity.
And a great conversation with Tina
Yes.
about, I think, similar to what we talk about when we have guests on, is we learn so much more about them, right? We know a little piece of it, but then we learn more. I think the same thing is true. I really enjoy the conversations we have with different folks from WGTE, because I've got a perception, certainly prior to me starting this program with WGTE, a perception of what WGTE is and did in the community, and having conversations with Tina, you learn there's so much more to it.
I think it's important for people to understand also that with all the national stories we hear about public broadcasting and PBS, people get confused, may not know that it's around. But this is free programming available on the website, on YouTube, on the app.
It's a
and
critical
lots of
part
great
of
stuff for kids.
everyone's childhood.
Yeah.
To a person, everyone in WGTE, and I'm not just saying it because we're in studio, but the team is great. The people are nice. They care about their community, and you can tell by the products they create.
Right.
If you missed any portion of the show, we got 3, maybe 4, maybe even 5 opportunities for you to catch it. 7 a.m. on WGTE's YouTube channel, 3 p.m. on FM 91 in Toledo, Bryan, Defiance, and Lima, and 6 p.m. on WGTE Connects channel 30.4. Of course, all of our episodes are available online at WGTE.org/the419 and everywhere you get podcasts, also available. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back next week. It's the 419, powered by WGTE, presented by Witro Wealth Management.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.